Hello, and welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, an opinion podcast presented by Mook Media. Please be aware that the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the host platform. Outside the Zeitgeist is funded by people like you, for some reason. And now, here are your hosts, Greg and Charles.
Alive. Fail. see, that one's when we're live. What over there is live. What over there is on standby. I would have thought after we're on episode 24, Outside the Zeitgeist, I would have thought you picked all this up by now. And I am your resident misanthrope, Charles.
I'm your resident skeptic, Greg.
And once again with us we have Red. And Red and I were talking because, we think she might need a last name like the Red Skank or Red McMahon. Which one do you like?
You mean because I'm sort of...
I think both of those are punny, but I think we can do worse.
Can I greet our people? Hello, darlings.
Cheers, Greg.
I feel better.
Cheers, Charles.
So,
don't forget to dislike, subscribe, share, comment, and most importantly, dislike to show that the feeling is mutual.
What were you saying, Red?
well, if you have an opinion as to what my surname should be, by all means, note it in the comments. It'll be considered.
Okay. So with that said, let's weigh in on the recent nightmare fuel.
Yes.
So the first thing I got is apparently there's Facebook's upset that people are leaking. Zuckerbot is upset that people are leaking what's going on over Facebook.
Look, I'd be upset too if my oil was leaking as well.
And what's it called? They were they're having the whole we shouldn't be leaking about who's getting banned and why and this, that, and the other thing, the internal workings of why people are getting banned and all that horse shit. And
Oh yes, we shouldn't be leaking that.
Yeah,
Yes.
visibility's bad. Visibility's bad. Let's keep it away from the disinfecting sunlight.
I found it interesting because I watched the whole Veritas video, and the thing that stood out to me is the fact that it seemed like they thought it would surprise the employees that if they started talking about internal documents that they would be fired or terminated. Because I expect it to be common sense that if you talk about something that is private to your company publicly, that you're not going to have repercussions occur because of it.
I mean, generally, the expectation of privacy in the workplace is diminished because your employer is allowed to narcle over your ass.
But it's at the same time too, we are living on planet Spengo. So
Spengo.
Yeah, you never seen Mom and Dad Save the World? Jeffrey Jones, Terry Garr, John Lovitz.
Bring that movie next time, Charles.
I will totally bring that movie. It's another movie of a planet full of idiots with some great lines.
Is it going to depress me again?
No, this one's hilarious.
Hold up, you need to watch, if you want to watch A Planet Full of Idiots, you need to watch the sixth part of the British, what's the dope panic? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So in the sixth part of the British one, they run aground back in time or something like that, and they come across this boat that has all of the middlemen on it, and it's hilarious.
But overall, with this whole thing with Facebook, it's just so hilarious. Where you get an entire generation of people that are raised as entitled, whiny little fucks, and what's it called? And how that just translates into their authoritarian directives not working out so successfully. What do you got, Red?
Well, two notes. One, there seems to be an expectation that these directives, these infringements on freedom are just a one-way street from us to them. But, there's always the horrified realization when that's turned around on you. That's point one. And point two, James O'Keefe, if you're hearing this, my offer to give you deep, hard head is still on the table.
We discussed this on an earlier episode, how I believe that the internet is some sort of parallel world, And in this parallel world that Facebook sort of exists in, there's some sort of separate country in some sense. They
Yes.
don't really have free speech there. They have the illusion of free speech on their platform, and that illusion is only there to keep up the fact that there is no free speech at all.
Well,
Because,
the best leash on people is the illusion of freedom.
yes, there are many illusions to that.
We got rid.
Well, that's sort of an interesting notion because under, our American notion, we each have inalienable rights that are inherent to us from our Creator just by existing and being human.
Except when
And-
we exist on digital platforms, then we don't.
Wait, I was about to go there, that in this lefty Wookiee rubric, that's not the case. The object of worship is the state, and there are no rights. They're just the privileges that the state chooses to accord to you, depending on whether you drink their ideological Kool-Aid. And this is a very nice little example of that.
It's absolutely hilarious. I was watching a YouTuber comment and commentate on another YouTuber, and this YouTuber apparently was a comedian, and he had good content, and he was all about free speech.
Yay.
And then a year later or something like that, or maybe...
Are you talking about Ethan Van Sciver?
Oh, yes. And the best part about it is that he goes and says, yeah, that's why the government is there. So we don't have to think about it. They can just tell us what to do, so we don't have to worry about it. And I'm like, are you an idiot? How many governments have you seen that don't take advantage of their people in such terrible ways?
Well,
Was he
the pursuit of
joking?
power.
Was that
No.
part of the act?
No, he was completely serious about it.
I mean, it's the old thing where freedom breeds complacency. Complacency breeds
Well,
authoritarianism.
as Gregory and I were chatting, rights not exercised are rights that you don't have.
Right. Which is why
So
I was saying,
exercise away, people.
freedom breeds complacency. Complacency breeds authoritarianism. Authoritarianism breeds rebellion. Rebellion breeds freedom.
I caught that one too.
But speaking of social media, right? Because we have another social media thing that's happened recently in Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Nicaragua.
Absolutely. Well, it's not even just there alone, but
It's Twitter can't surf Nicaragua.
no.
I mean, it does.
Poor Twitter. Poor Twitter.
Wait, was it Nicaragua?
You sow what you reap, bitches, because here Twitter is trying to have it both ways. Oh, you can't choke freedom rights of speech, that's why you have to let us in. But Twitter certainly doesn't practice that internally. Again, it's that wokey leftist expectation that somehow they only live downstream from these stupid ass assertions that they can infringe people's freedoms and not have it splash back on them.
Let me counter you because it's the second time you say it. Because this whole idea of wokey leftiness, it's all red herring. It's all.
Is it really?
No, Mr.
I think it's
Green.
connected.
Communism is just a red herring.
Because the whole idea is authoritarianism. Because it's,
Yeah, that's the
I
larger
don't
umbrella.
really think the people that preach all this woke shit actually know what authoritarianism is.
well,
I think someone in their organization knows what it is, but they don't believe that
They're
the ones
useful
actually
idiots.
doing it. The interesting thing about a lot of these awful just ideologies is that they suck you in on the premise of goodness and
Well,
you're
remember-
doing things that are
Exactly, Gregory.
remember, nobody owns an ideology. An
No,
ideology
I
owns
get you. But what I'm saying is that these bad ideologies bring you in believing that what you're actually now thinking and how you're thinking and all that is in a different and better and more moral light.
Exactly.
But they get you to believe it so well that you miss the fact that what you're actually doing is you're suppressing other people's ability to speak or do or just
In fact,
be.
Well-
one up you one on that is that in part that is the objective, right?
That might be.
Because exactly so. That is standard repressive tolerance. Marcuse, dog.
I like to believe that the majority of people have been tricked into believing this ideology.
Same
and
difference.
That they are just unaware of what's going on.
Correct.
But unfortunately, they're so indoctrinated into it that they can't see their way out of their ass.
Yeah, I mean, I always question the whole idea of how valid any belief is if it requires indoctrination.
I mean, the bottom line is that the default setting in many places in the U.S. is, secular liberal, right? And there's, very little exposure to other legitimate American mainstream ways of digesting what is happening around us. And it really infantilizes people and prevents people from having sufficient knowledge to make up their own minds. Because, Charles, that's not the purpose of education, is it? To enable people to think for themselves.
Well, it depends on who's doing the educating.
I just want to make the point that Twitter did say that internet was the right of people. It was a human right to have the internet. I still don't understand how that's possible, but it is the right of humans to have access to the internet.
Before I continue on that, let me finish off the thought that I wanted to talk with Red, or mention to Red about. Because I wanted to point out our whole discussion last week about the Theseus and the relation to the politics and everything, and how it's, and just say, not that I want to be a word Nazi, which I totally want to do. Because, like I said, this whole thing is part of a semantic
Gregory,
war
we're going to have to jump Charles over this.
But anyways, but saying like wokey left in the terms of you're ignoring, saying stuff like that ignores the actual problem, which is authoritarianism in any form. And that's what I wanted to point out.
I get your point, Charles, that the problem is authoritarianism in any form. It is, however, I think, incontrovertible that the main vehicle and thrust of seeking to impose a China-style cultural revolution in the U.S. is coming from the wokey left. So I think it's potato.
Well, the problem with that analysis is that I could make the same statement for not too many years ago when it was from the quote-unquote right.
From where?
The right.
How so?
Religious, what's it called? Religious freedom, we'll call it, as one thing.
Mean religious fundamentalists?
And the censorship that happened from there that everybody seems to forget about nowadays.
I've never forgotten. They wanted to ban one of my favorite book series, Harry Potter, from school. They tried to get it banned in libraries locally while I was in school back in the 2000s.
And let's not forget, because you have all these people that are thinking that Trump is some kind of hero in the face of all this censorship. Let's not forget who Trump appointed to the FCC.
The man is not without his defects. Let's just be real clear.
Look,
and Gregory, to agree with you, and also by extension Charles, on this particular point, I know, right? So,
it's always good to be an
is yes, you're right. Totalitarianism can come from whatever side of the spectrum, right? Absolutely true. And in support of your Harry Potter reference, I wanted to inform the world that I'm wearing awesome Harry Potter bracelets today.
I can vouch for that.
Do you hear that? Woo, baby.
Right, but that's the question, right? How much of a service are you doing to? What's your goal if you're identifying the left versus right instead of authoritarianism versus
well, let's recouch then the conflict, right? Because the conflict really is between those who want freedom, like American liberal Democrats, because the word liberal is derived from liberty, another synonym for freedom, and these crazy leftists. At an earlier generation, it was coming more from the religious right. And Gregory, you will relate to this, that in every generation they will arise to try to destroy us.
Sure.
Benjamin Franklin gave us this warning. A republic. Was it Benjamin Franklin? A republic if you can keep it. And that was the challenge.
My thing is, and I agree with you, Charles, but I also agree with Red over there. The problem is that people like bite-sized thoughts.
They like putting things in names and labeling everything.
And unfortunately, there's very few people that can separate the fact that what is actually happening is authoritarianism versus what they see it as, which is the vehicle of wokeism.
Yeah, well, that's the one drum I won't stop beating, because I'm not going to be lazy just to save a syllable.
No, I get it, Charles.
I'll be honest, I think it makes it easier for people to digest to begin with, and then you can bring them into the actual thought process, which is
right.
This is really just authoritarianism. This is just another vehicle in which it has been
it's sort
packaged
of like,
into.
It's sort of like turning the
public.
Exactly right, Gregory. It's sort of like turning around the telescope. When you're aiming the telescope to get up close to the larger picture, Charles, yes, it's totalitarianism. But if you turn it around to talk about the immediate transaction at hand, I'm just using wokey because it's funny AF,
right?
And because it does happen to be the cultural struggle at the moment. And to hark back to Gregory's point, yeah, a generation ago it was the religious right. Understood.
That was your point?
Understood. So the struggle is against anybody who
Potter.
would infringe on our liberty and freedom. That no, rights do not come from the government. They are inalienable to us. But we also need to have a conversation to what exactly we mean by
I
rights,
think she
right?
likes you more than me.
That might be true.
What you boys doing on that side of the
Oh,
street?
we're just talking while you're, doing your thing over there.
Maybe the audience heard it, probably not.
Other interesting
Well,
things.
But to finish off on that,
No, we don't need to finish.
no, because Mark Dorsey was at a Bitcoin conference, and he,
I'm sorry, who?
What Jack Dorsey? That's what.
There we go.
Might as well combine them.
I
Jack
think
Dorsey-
Jeff Zuckerberg sounds better because you could also get CNN in there, Jeff Zucker.
But anyways, Jack Dorsey was at a Bitcoin conference, and there was somebody there who was basically just
Laura
calling
Loomer?
calling him out on all the horse shit.
Oh, it's great.
And
Great. Twitter has never been as hypocritical as it has been in the last year or two. Ever since I saw the interview, or rather the 2-hour show of
Yeah.
Joe Rogan with Tim Pool.
I was thinking that
him
exactly.
talking to Jack Dorsey and his right-hand woman, I guess. or
Right.
whatever.
Tim held his ground and
He did,
really, yeah.
and they just didn't understand what he was trying to say, which is sad. Or maybe they just chose to ignore what he was trying to say,
I
so
think
that way
both.
they could bulldoze his point away with their own bullshit point they were trying to make. But they didn't really make any sense. They came off looking completely terrible on that show itself.
Well,
Better than the alternative. Admitting I'm a sociopath, I'm out to control the way the world thinks.
Just look at Jack Dorsey's haircut and you understand.
His haircut, look at his beard.
no, I think he cut off his beard, but for the longest time he was a
He
mountain
missed.
of a garden
Should
gnome.
have cut his neck.
He was more than that. He was the whatever I imagine that someone who's a comedy to look like.
But speaking of Bitcoin, so El Salvador has decided to make Bitcoin legal tender. I'm sure this has made Bitcoin.
Now,
more
I don't know
valuable.
if I heard exactly the same thing. I think I heard that they were thinking about it, but they're moving to make it legal
No, I
tender.
think they actually went ahead and finalized.
And
making
and
it
this
legal.
is
So I'm
to
amazed by that.
I'm not, because that's to facilitate the transmission of funds from illegals in the U.S. to bring them back into El Salvador. I mean, that's one of the
No.
No,
largest.
drugs.
That's one of the largest forms of semi-lawful foreign investment in that country.
Okay, well, on that topic, we can talk about how much the CIA is incorporated into that. But the other, what I would say is the more pertinent topic is all these countries wanting to get away from the U.S. dollar as a standard currency.
So they also talked about last episode, the Russia moving away from that. I find it increasingly more problematic that we did not think that this was eventually going to happen if the countries that we are working with decide to work against us.
Yeah, well, authoritarian people like Kissinger and Rockefeller and whatnot never do.
You know,
But-
Russia was never really aligned with the United States. And,
But here's the other thing too, right? Because let's flip the script on that. What if that's kind of part of the plan, which is to
digital currencies.
no, but because Russia and China and all these other countries getting on onto a different currency exchange, right? So what if these same players that helped create America as the American dollar as the go-to currency are just divesting from that themselves and helping to fund this new creation because they established something that's more easily controlled by them.
So there are two immediate thoughts that come to my mind as we start the discussion here. One is that Russia would want to make it impossible for the average citizen to do business outside of Russia in any serious capacity,
Exactly.
or with any country that would only use the dollar as a backing. So because of that, it makes it much harder for people to get outside of their reach. Second thought is that the collective hegemony of people who sit at the top don't want the people who are being ruled by them to ever get outside of their spectrum And so they are collectively finding ways to make it so that the individuals within the countries are trapped, but that they can still do business abroad and exchange currencies.
Right, that's like the IMF coming out and saying that we want to control all the transactions.
Absolutely.
What do you got, Red?
Yeah, I mean, the whole purpose of crypto is that it's a distributed blockchain network, meaning that
That's why I
changes
guess
in one aspect of the network would still need to be reconciled with changes in the other, and you can identify fakes that way. So it would be very hard, as I understand it, and I'm asking people to comment if I have my understanding wrong, it would be very hard for governments to control how people spend using crypto because of the
Plus,
nature
they
and
buy it
structure
up.
of blockchain.
Well, I mean, you'd have to. The whole idea of the blockchain is that no one computer controls
I
everything.
just read
Exactly,
something
that's
about
what I meant by
a Bitcoin,
distributed.
farm being established.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Where did I read this from?
it's every different computer talking to each other and providing different ledgers on transactions and
Nodes, bitches.
everything. But speaking of money going around,
Yeah, where's
Venmo-
my money?
Venmo has apparently decided to block money going to organizations that contain the word Palestine or any mention of Palestine, and it's doing so saying that it's following laws, but I'm not quite sure what laws they're following unless they're talking about the BDS laws, which we've talked about before.
Some
Maybe I should
states
distance myself
have
from Venmo.
anti-BDS laws, or local governments have some.
Yeah, I counted 44.
Ah, there you go. So maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, the way you spend money is a form of speech, isn't it?
Yeah, according to
can't say-
Citizens United.
Right, right.
Only if you consider the fact that every person who spends $1 is 100% aware of every single thing that that company ever does, or that the parent company does, or that the parent company to that parent company does. You know, you would have to be this
What about
fucking genius who knows the 3 companies separated from every single freaking company.
Yeah, what
Just
about the second cousin twice removed company?
This is what I'm talking about. Did you know that my second cousin twice removed was actually a lawyer sitting on the corporation of that guy, and that he secretly talked in a coffee shop with the guy in Palestine?
Is that anything like my cousin's sister's brother's cousin's friend?
Almost certainly. My $1 that I paid for the chocolate at that company, that dollar was paying for that other guy's coffee in Palestine. Oh my God, I gotta tell you.
But well, in reference to Palestine, apparently Google has been blurring the maps of gluing all the images of around Israel, Gaza, and all that whole region.
I mean, I sort of don't understand where they're coming from on that. Are they looking to benefit those asserting for the advocating for the Palestinians, or are they looking to support Israel? Because sort of by doing that, they're sort of like pissing off both groups in a way.
Yeah, because it's preventing people from assessing the damage from using the satellite imagery. And, you know, why is Google the only one with all these satellites around that can see everything? Not that I
They're
want
rich.
more space junk
They're
and everything.
fucking rich.
Elon, we need you, Elon. You're so Chad. That's another blowjob, by the way. Elon, hit me up.
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to find this thing
The
about the
crypto daddy?
Bitcoin farm, and I just came across an article. A Jersey Mike's shop opening in California is offering a hiring bonus of up to $10,000.
To do what?
Because they're looking for people.
They need people. Nobody wants to work.
To do what? I mean, to make sandwiches, a 10 grand upfront bonus to like run a Jersey Mike's in California?
Yeah, but you can't get the U-cut at Jersey's Mike's.
I mean, is this not an excellent exercise to see sort of like what soft UBI would do? It would wreck people. It would
It
wreck
already
economies.
has. UBI is, in my opinion, there is already enough experimentation to show the downfall of UBI and how bad it would turn out.
Okay,
Because
well, how does my situation figure into your guys' thought?
What's your situation, dog?
I live on disability.
you are one of the few people who
You're disabled.
would require
Mhm.
an actual income outside of that. And I still think there's ways that you can contribute to society and make an actual income doing so. Okay?
And
because I know a
remain-
number of people that
Yeah.
have problems
Right.
that work, that get some sort of wage, that still manage to find a way to survive. Okay?
And Charles, who is productively engaged in a arguably productive way, right? This is contributing to the national conversation in some teeny tiny small way. A lot of people would not necessarily have the get up and go. It breeds a lot of, it indulges a lot of nihilism, which is not good for anybody.
Here's my
I like
thing.
nihilism.
Here's my thing, Charles. You are one of the few people who might need some sort of income assistance in any way possible to make certain that you can survive.
Okay.
Okay? Majority of people, 99% of people, do not need that, and it is a detriment to them. You are at a much later stage in life than the majority of people who are getting this UBI and are taking advantage of the system and learning, oh, I just need to figure out a way how I can get the government to give me money, and then I don't have to do actual work. They're putting work into figuring out ways to trick the government into giving them money. Just so yours is a legitimate case, okay? You have not tricked the government as well as they have.
Well, it also comes back to the question of what is a right, because a lot of these people are arguing, oh, it's a right. I deserve to get UBI because it is a human right. It's a horrible thing to be part of this rat race to, to work and cover my nut and find some way to contribute in some way to society, through my labor or just, by keeping busy so that I don't do any other nefarious things, right? So, it comes into circles.
Yeah, I mean, my response would again be it's more complicated than we're all looking at it.
It's always more complicated, but there is always going to be much more complex discussions that need to be had about these kinds of policies, I would say. I
mean, consider this. Out of the entire population of people in a given population, 100 is the average IQ. That's the midpoint. Half are smart.
I thought it was
No,
90.
it's always gauged so that 100 is the average. And the U.S. military, which has been examining IQ for about 100 years, has determined that, even with their urgent need for bodies, right? And that need is sort of changing with robotics and so on, and drones. But even with an urgent need for bodies, they will not accept somebody with an IQ lesser than 80. Right? There are a lot of people out there who are just not capable of following instructions, engaging in simple tasks.
Yeah, this is why
there
nobody
is
could
a
program a
segment of
VCR
the
in the
population that just cannot.
So
and
easy. You just follow the instructions. You read the stupid booklet and it tells you how to do everything.
I know, right?
But Gregory, there are people who have cognitive scatter who just cannot translate. Okay, these words have this meaning, and this meaning would guide my actions to do X, Y, and Z. There are people who literally cannot do that.
Yeah.
People in IQ lesser than 80.
We should leave this for a separate
we'll
topic.
We'll get into this in a different full topic. Moving on, but kind of touching on that. So I don't know if you guys heard of Alex Saab.
Nope.
He runs a relief organization to help out the people in Venezuela. Starving people and all that.
They need
stuff.
help.
Now, he apparently has been accused of using that organization to launder money.
Oh.
He was arrested. He's been apparently he's being allowed to be extradited to the U.S. after a court decision in
From where?
In Cape Verde, which may or may not have anything to do with a U.S. warship hanging around while the court was making a decision. But at the same time, Switzerland was also charging him with money laundering charges and decided to drop the charges because there wasn't enough evidence. So
really,
and
that's humorous.
Yeah, so I mean, this whole thing is like, okay, we could talk about relief organizations and how sometimes they are used to launder money. Okay, I would probably agree to the notion that would be more often than not. But it's that whole thing with Venezuela. Well, if this guy's so bad, why would he have a warship hanging around Cape Verde when they were making their decision?
I have an interesting.
And what is the U.S. interest in him anyways? If this guy's like,
I have an interesting thought experiment. It would take a lot of time and research looking into, but how often does the average citizen of any country get charged and prosecuted when there is just as much evidence in a case like this? And I don't know how much or how little evidence there is. Whereas someone who is affluent doesn't get charged because there's a quote-unquote lack of evidence.
Yeah.
I think it would be very interesting to look into that.
Gregory, I think that's fantastic, but I would suggest that it's not just affluence. It is, social
Affluenza.
capital. It's, think of Epstein, right? He wasn't just rich. He had his finger on the nodes of relationships and information
Yeah, well, he was
and
too
control.
hot. They had to kill him.
How's Ghislaine doing? Is she still alive? I hope so.
Yeah,
Ghislaine, you better sing like a bird, baby.
She got her bail denied again.
Thank
Yay.
God.
But so and we can talk about the vidya, the COVID news and the doom spell. So I was watching Jimmy Dore the other day, and he got the I can't remember if he said the Moderna or the Pfizer one.
Oh, he actually got one?
Wow.
Yeah, he got both shots,
Poor Jimmy Dore.
and he's feeling like crap, and he's going to the doctor, and he was talking about the doctor was telling him what was going on is that it looks like the macrophages are attacking his healthy cells, and he didn't understand that. So for anybody else that might actually
Wait, so this triggered an autoimmune response? Just
oh, it's
taking
not
the
like
vax?
anything I said before would happen.
Far out.
Good.
But so for people who don't understand what that means, I figured I'd take a moment here to kind of explain all the biology and everything behind it. So macrophages are cells within the body that go around and they look for dead cells or dying cells. And the way they identify dead or dying cells is the cell will have a protein marker on them that says, "Hey, I'm dying. Come kill me and recycle me." Yes, Red.
A shorter way to explain this is to
No, come
refer.
kill me.
A shorter way to explain this is to refer people to the anime bodies at work.
All right. So
Oh, yes, I love that
Right?
show.
I love it.
Great.
So, anyways, but cells will also do this when they're infected with a virus. Now, some
Okay.
viruses can get around this, but when a cell is infected with a virus, it'll put up the "Hey, come kill me" sign, so the macrophages can come around and devour the cell, thereby consuming the virus at the same time. Now, I talked before when I mentioned calling it the doom spell was about putting the protein markers that identify the cells as a virus, which triggers a different response from the body. So I'm not necessarily sure if it would still qualify
Well,
as
it's more
lupus.
complicated than that, and I don't presume to be a doctor, okay? So,
Right, well, I'm trying to keep
virologists,
it...
feel free to comment
I'm-
in the comments. But wait a minute. It's an mRNA technology, meaning that ultimately it gets iterated into the DNA comprising all of our cells.
Well-
so what happens when there's a reinfection? Brett Weinstein, feel free to opine. When there's a reinfection and all of a sudden your body is tagging every cell in itself as being marked for destruction. It's sort of like
Thank
a larger version of what poor Jimmy Dore is undergoing. Jimmy, you don't get a blowjob. I don't think you're that cute. But I like you.
Thank you, Red. Can I go back to explaining the science in a brief way now?
You don't like my blowjob meter?
Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Oh, Charles.
Anyways, so yeah, what I was talking about before was the cells getting marked with this marker that says, "Hey, I'm a virus," and being attacked by antibodies and whatnot. But so the macrophages thing, I'd have to look into see how much that changes, whatnot. But once again, this goes to what I said before about this condition that's being introduced, so that the cells replicate this protein, or that produces protein, and then those cells replicate, and then somehow we're just supposed to go by the statistics that all of these cells that produce this protein are just going to automatically be taken out, which I said is a bad statistic to count on, and now people are suffering the consequences from. And Jimmy Dore was saying that he's being called a long hauler. Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's bad news, man.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's a really long haul. And
Well, all I know is that VAERS has recorded 5,000 plus people that died after receiving the vaccine.
Mhm.
And there are many, many, many more, I would say, reports of people that had reactions after having received the vaccine. And, yeah, just food for thought.
yeah, I mean, the other thing too is that with the mRNA technology, you're not necessarily ensuring that the entire protein chain is being made and so forth. And there's all these statistics go into it, and the whole thing is just entirely unstable. I wonder why it's been they've been testing it for almost 20 years and it's never been approved.
But right now
I think
it's
it
in
was over, at
some.
least a decade's worth of research was put into it before they started doing anything.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting stuff. We're going to follow up with some of the stuff that I've been looking into in these emails.
We'll get to that in a second, but I just want to point out and wrap up because now everybody's oh, the masks are coming off and we can open up society again and all this bullshit and we can turn on CNN and watch Vanderboy and the ass tapper tell us about what to be afraid of next.
Tapper.
I'm sorry, ass tap?
The
That's
ass tapper.
awesome. That's
ass tapper.
hilarious.
Yeah, so we can watch them tell us about what to be afraid. Oh, that's right. We're going to have UFOs. So instead of a god to get behind, we can all be united. But anyways,
I recently heard them say that they actually believe they're not illusions.
oh yeah, I wonder why
they're
they're
doubling
saying
down
that.
on these things.
Wonder why it's probably not to get some new fanaticism over, but the whole thing I want to point out is that what will never happen is the actual conversation about viruses and vaccines and whatnot, because the bottom line is that a certain number of people are going to die whenever a virus or or variation comes around, but also a certain number of people are going to die whenever there's a vaccine coming around. And on top of that, the whole idea between having a vaccine or not having a vaccine, well, getting a vaccine, let's say it's an ideal vaccine, which there are no inherent circumstances, no flaws in the technology or the
Zero flaws. That would be
or
quite.
the whatever, I can't remember. I'm blanking out on the word that they use to keep it fresh.
Preservative?
Preservative. There we go. There's no flaws in the preservative either, right? And somebody gets it. Well, when you're getting a vaccine, it's like being tossed underhand the effects of what the virus would actually be, right? Now we can. And from that point, you have to talk about, okay, well, how much of that underhand is compared to what the actual effects of the virus are, right? Because you talk about like polio and stuff like that. But on the same time, you have people that aren't going to take vaccines for whatever reason and can't take vaccines because they'll die if they take it, right? Not something people want to understand because they want to assume that we have this monohomolous physiology here. But yes, that's a Greek and Latin blending there. Fuck you.
May I ask a question, Charles?
Yeah.
And I'm not being disparaging when I say this because I'm listening to what you're saying.
Right.
And I'm trying to understand where are you going with this and what is
Well,
your
I'm getting there.
destination?
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because the other part of it is the whole idea that people that don't take vaccines, they become a breeding ground and whatnot. So the whole question that nobody bothers to ask or talk about is how much are you doing a disservice by taking the vaccine and not bearing the brunt of it? Because people that bear the brunt of a virus build up stronger immunities. This is why you stop breastfeeding your child after a while, right? But at the same time, how much is having the breeding ground for the disease going to affect? We'll just say those that have taken the vaccine, because those that have taken vaccine don't have that strong of an immune system and whatnot. And there's all these kind of questions. Everybody wants to oversimplify the whole thing about viruses and diseases, and it's just reductive. We're never going to do that. We're just going to go on to the next distractor.
Can I see if I captured your message, right? Your core point, that we are not examining the question of how beneficial the vaccine is given its many constraints and its risks that are not yet fully understood, versus people simply, well, it's not simple because this is a life and death situation for some people with multiple comorbidities, but versus gaining exposure to the virus slowly over time and having an organic immune response to it.
Right. I mean, it's the whole thing of, people, and there's also this sublying psychology of people wanting to think that if they did something that it's somehow better. Sometimes doing nothing and letting things take their course is the better action.
Well, there's a lot packed in there, and not least of which is that I'm certainly not fully understanding all that is involved here with the vaccines and this illness. None of us really do. I mean, the experts have been roundly discredited how many which ways. Mm-hmm. But also the very deficient nature of just generally humanity in assessing risk. I took greater risks driving here to join you guys this evening than I don't know what, some certain well-known, understood, around for a long time vaccines.
Yeah, no, you could
right?
have been hit by a meteorite.
Right now.
Speaking of being discrediting experts, Greg did some research.
I did some research. I told
Greg.
you I was going to look into these emails.
Go, Greg.
In some capacity over the weekend. I did. There is a lot a lot of fucking shit in these emails.
Oh my God.
I mean, there is stuff that is just unimportant to very important. And then there's questionable phrases that get put into emails. At least they're questionable to me because they make me think there's more going on. And I didn't even get to any of the groundbreaking stuff that everyone is talking about with him talking to Zuckerberg or any of the other thing. But I did realize after reading into it, I found two different groups. There was one from Tom Leopold, who he had a group of emails, and it seemed like the first email was sometime in the beginning of February, and the last email was sometime in March. So that must have been downloaded from these guys, ICAN, because ICAN put in the initial...
The FOIA request.
The FOIA request
and then
for everything.
And then they got censored after wanting to release, after trying to release
Twitter
it all.
wanted to block them and
then
did block them.
So that's why most people
Wow.
thought BuzzFeed was the one that did it.
Absolutely. And I don't know if I've discussed it on show before, but I do listen to No Agenda. And they think that the reason BuzzFeed put it out so quickly was as a way of damage control.
Yeah, well, that...
Which is interesting, because
well,
that's what it seems like to me.
It's
You mean
either
like
that-
you mean like a plausible deniability? Like, oh my
Something-
God, that's BuzzFeed. They're a bunch of no, you know, they're not journalists.
Well,
Well-
there were a number of things that I came across in the emails that I did read through. And I'm sure I'm missing a couple thousand pages worth of these emails, because they're supposed to be like 3,000 pages. It looks like about, on average, 2 to 3 pages is one email, or even more than that. It's like there's email chains that are in these things. And I only got to see emails from February to the May time period for what I saw, and I'm sure there's even more. But I know that ICANN also has 2 more FOIA requests for more emails, all the way back into December until current. And the current, I guess, would have been at May or April time period when they put these FOIA requests in. The thing that stood out to me most is how many interview requests / conference / show up at my thing kind of thing that Fauci got altogether. And he got more, at least 50, and I only went through about 900 pages worth of emails. What's up?
Generally speaking, you know, like in a large organization, when somebody responds by email, yeah, let's have a call about this. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's code for, we cannot document this. We better communicate in a way that cannot be easily discoverable.
Well, it's funny you say stuff like that. So I'm looking at all the emails, okay? Looking at all these emails. The things that stand out to me the most is the amount of interview requests type things, the amount of people that advertised to him. By the way, this had good results. You should use it as a response to COVID. And there were a lot of people. They were talking about
Respirators?
No.
Respiratory?
No. What the heck is that?
Reparations.
Remdesivir. Remdesivir, yes. So they're talking about remdesivir. They were talking about hydroxychloroquine.
Ivermectin.
They were talking about. I didn't get anything. I didn't see any things on the ivermectin.
Oh, we got to talk about
there,
ivermectin.
There were. I've seen a lot of articles about ivermectin. There were people talking about many different drugs in general and how effective that they were having in their personal usage of it, and how it could be used as a possible treatment for COVID. And the only ones that seemed to be from Fauci, the only ones he was backing were the ones by Gideon or Gill something. I can't remember. It was the I think it was the treatment that Trump got back in. The therapeutic.
I can't remember.
Well, it doesn't matter. Here's a couple interesting things that stood out to me. So I came across an email that had, here are the coordinates for us to meet up. That stood out to me because I don't know anyone who talks like, oh yeah, here are coordinates for us to meet up kind of thing, right? It wasn't said exactly like that, but these are my coordinates. We should meet here to talk. It was like, that's odd. Coordinates, not an address. There was someone who ended the email in, quote unquote, cover your 6. Like,
that sounds very militaristic, CIA spoof
very
talk.
weird stuff. Fauci was very surprised at someone's estimation of the numbers of deaths and everything. They were told, let's see, where was it? Where did I put it down on my notes? 500K deaths and 98, or 500K infections and 98K deaths or something like that. It's like, that seems high. And it was like, the way it was said seemed to suggest that he thought that that was a questionable amount of, 98 million infected, 500K deaths. That's it. It seemed like he was questioning how many people dying that the doctor or whoever was, scientist who was talking to him in the email, was actually saying. HIV was mentioned 5 times in the 900 pages that I saw, and that was in relation to the fact that the virus contained segments or seemed like something was causing HIV or related to it in some way. That was alarming. There was already a coronavirus vaccine trial in February that was underway. He noted that things would be moving too quickly in one email in regards to some sort of treatment of some sort. He noted that immunity would be assumed if infected, and infecting people with other less lethal coronavirus. There was someone who suggested to him to infect people with other less lethal coronaviruses, so that way people would gain partial immunity or less severe results in regards to COVID-19. I'm like,
interesting.
That's an interesting idea, but I don't think that's a very practical idea. There was a Canadian doctor who suggested that it's possible that children under 9 are not getting infected as much because of the fact that of their cocktail of vaccines that they get as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of them is possibly giving them immunity to a certain degree, because after you get over 9, I guess people's immunity tends to fall off. And there was a lot of talk about the pneumonia vaccine being used because it was showing that it had good results in blocking some of the same stuff that COVID was. It was talked about a lot. Like, in just the 900 pages, at least 100 pages or 200 pages were talking about from other people with Fauci, we should do this, or maybe we should try this, and people were talking about remdesivir a lot. There's just so many things. And already in March, there was the issue, are we living in a free society? That's going to be a problem if we try to do any of these social distancing guidelines or locking down the economy or something like that, because we're in a free society. I'm amazed about all of this stuff, and I'm going to probably spend more time looking into even more emails. I'll give another update. But most astounding was the fact that Fauci said earlier this year that he felt like he could breathe now or talk about the subject of what was actually going on. And yet, back in March, April last year, he was telling people that he was not being censored, that he could speak freely. There was at least 7 separate emails in a 2 or 3 day time period. I gotta tell you, these journalists really were hoping that Trump or someone in his organization was censoring him, because if they could have gotten Trump on censoring Fauci, they would have had gold. Just that was the most interesting part about it. And there was a couple of conclusions I came to. One, all of the people praising Fauci and how great he was. It seemed like Dr. Fauci was the only person in the entire world who was allowed to speak, talk, or say anything in regards to COVID. And he wanted copies of every interview, every video, every article that he was mentioned in, possibly for covering his ass reasons. What's up, Red?
My question is, and I would love to see comments on this, is Fauci a fool or is he a villain?
He's both.
Yeah, it can be both.
He is absolutely both.
These are not mutually exclusive ideas.
And just to follow up on all this COVID nonsense, apparently last year, before COVID-19 was declared a pandemic, there was a Chinese military scientist filing a patent for a COVID-19 vaccine. It might have even been in 2019, but I came across this obscure factoid. Factoid, I guess that's the right word. In one of my various YouTube videos that I was watching, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. They were already trying to file a patent for a vaccine before it was even declared a pandemic. And, now we got all these wonderful articles proving Trump correct in that it probably was manufactured in a lab.
DJT.
No, I think he was a shit president, but
His ability
I also
to
think
detect,
he's a better president than
wait.
Biden
His
will ever
ability
be.
to detect bullshit is fucking credible.
Well, it's funny you say that because he says, Fauci was a great promoter.
That's funny.
Trump knows what's going on.
DJT dog.
Do we want to talk about the last thing, or do we want to go into the topic?
Yeah, let's make a small mention of it.
All right. So apparently, people are all up in a tizzy because the George Floyd Square is being torn down.
Yay.
Oh, no.
But they're doing it to make a smaller memorial. And
Why?
I this is something I just never I just can't get over, right? And
The fact that a criminal got a state burial?
well, I mean, listen, whatever George Floyd was or wasn't, the whole thing about him and this whole thing with Chauvin and the national attention is mainly predicated about a person being at a specific place at a specific time, right? Because it could have been any other asshole that happened to, right? But if you look throughout history and who we make statues of, first off, why the hell do we always need to make statues of people? Yes, I understand why it's a rhetorical question. Fuck you, people. But
Thank you.
but the people we make statues of and dedicate things to are not great people in the first place. Usually, I mean, what was George Floyd? He was just some asshole. Who cares?
He was a slightly less violent, terrible person than, say, Robert E. Lee.
I mean,
Look, the guy didn't deserve to die the way he did.
True.
Okay, let's get that clear
Yeah.
because we're not advocating
Yeah,
that this was a
there's a
rightful
band
that
here,
this was
right?
a rightful
But he also
outcome.
doesn't-
However,
I
it
don't
doesn't
think
change the
deserve a
fact
statue
that
for
this
any
was no angel.
Amazing thing that he did, which he didn't.
yeah, I mean, like, hey, I'm a horrible human being. Does that mean I'm gonna have a statue made of me one day?
Maybe.
Only if you
Maybe,
die
Charles.
from a black supremacist proven court trial a year later after tons of rioting from White Lives Matter people.
Well, I will just say this: if people do make a statue of me, it'll just prove my point of how shitty humanity is.
Look, not only are we going to make a statue out of you,
I want
but we're going to 3D print it.
Listen, if you're gonna make a statue of me, there's only one body part that you guys should make a statue of.
Your butt?
Exactly, so y'all can fucking kiss it.
You know what I want?
Just 2 legs and an ass. That's all you need of me.
Can you insert quarters in the crevice?
Yes, and it'll make farting noises.
I thought it was going to give predictions of the future.
Through farting. It will, through farting noises.
Chinese fortune butt?
What do you got, Red?
Well, rather than a statue, what I would appreciate is having a bust made of me. Just my boobs.
A bust of your bust?
And you better believe it.
Look, I think this is a great segue into our actual topic, which is...
Boobs?
No, comedy.
Which boobs can be funny.
Sure, absolutely. It's all subjective, right?
You know, I keep laughing at your jokes because I'm actually amused, but I feel like I'm channeling Robin Givens, who would laugh at anything Howard Stern said, even if it wasn't funny.
I'm
So
laughing at
just-
the jokes because I'm
Everybody,
easily amused.
please know that if I'm laughing at these guys, it's because I think they're actually funny. And maybe that's not a good reflection on me. Maybe that's just evidence that I, too, am a bad person.
I think you appreciate my humor.
Show
I
it
think
to
you
me.
appreciate me as a person, and I think the two of them combined together forms a much better laugh.
Now, me, on the other hand, that's a completely different story. For me, it's mostly pity laughs.
No, you know that when you make a lame joke, Charles, I just like look at you and resist the urge to smack you.
My rule is almost, there are boundaries, keep out the farm animals and the children, but almost anything goes if it's funny.
What about the pigs?
Fuck the pigs.
Literally?
But
Well, it depends on
they're
context.
they're slightly better than all the other animals.
But I mean, it's we talk about humor and you miss all the great comedians back in the day when we grew up, and the humor. You see stand-up comedians and whatnot. Well, I mean, it's that whole thing. If you're a comedian and you're getting applause rather than laughs, you're not telling jokes.
No,
And
you're giving a
You're
speech.
reporting the news.
Right.
You're clearly giving a performance if you're getting an applause.
And what's it called? And that seems to be what amounts for humor a lot anymore, especially in certain circles of the wokey brigade.
We have lost sight on what actual humor is. If it brings you to a laugh, regardless of how bad or how stupid the one line is, or the couple lines that leads up to the punchline, if you're laughing, it's funny.
I mean, like, whatever happened to the humor that just was made fun of things that we share, or just made fun of things like of groups of people share without this whole era of stereotypical behavior.
Let's talk about what makes a joke.
What makes a joke, Gregory?
Let me ask you this then: you ever just let out a fart
No.
that was so relieving that a few minutes later you're still feeling relieved by it? Like,
I
man,
can't say that's happened.
That was a
I've
really-
thrown up to the point where I feel relieved, and I'm like, oh yeah. Now that burning sensation is no longer in my throat.
No, I will tell you what's happened to me, though. You know when you're going keto and you've been doing it for a while and you actually see it result in
Yeah,
your
me neither.
urine results?
I never did keto.
And then you have a keto poop, and that shit just slides out of you like a snake out of a lubed tube. Just crazy.
Is this like that one episode of South Park where Randy Marsh just kept on eating P.F. Chang's for weeks and weeks
Oh
and
my
weeks?
god, that's a death penalty right there.
And he had a poop that was 100 Keurigs.
What about the poops that stand up in the toilet hole? They just stand the fuck up like a flagpole. What's with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really bad when they're kind of like that, and then especially if you're a guy, because then they fall forward and they just whack you on the nuts on the way down.
You almost feel like saluting as it swirls around and gets sucked into the plumbing, and you're like, my god, those who come from the sea shall return.
The first thing we literally went to was toilet humor.
Yeah.
The toilet humor is funny.
This is a
Why
scat
is it funny?
episode, dog.
Let's go
It's
over.
something we all do.
Let's go over what makes
scat,
a joke.
scat.
Let's go over why is a joke funny.
Oh, sorry, we got sidetracked on poop. Sorry about that, Gregory. Let's have a serious discussion about what shit's
shit.
funny.
Exactly. We're gonna have a serious discussion about shit, about what shit is funny.
Okay,
You ever know
Greg,
other
I'm
people's
all ears.
the stuff is shit and your shit is stuff?
I can't remember the exact quote, but comedy is basically turning you're taking a situation which might be horrible and you're finding the humor in that situation, so that way you can move on.
That's
with
why
life.
Jews are funny. Hey,
Well,
Charles.
this is why I say I complain all the time, just because I find it funny. All the bad shit that happens to me.
Yeah,
So-
see, but that's complaining. To take it to a higher level, you need to make a joke out of it.
Well, that's what I try to do. You people just don't laugh because you
You're
don't.
just not as funny.
No,
Pass
I
me
just
the
think you
fucking
don't find
box
my
of
misery
wine,
as funny
Charles.
as I do. That's what I think it is.
I'm gonna ask Google what makes a joke.
Oh,
I
yeah,
want to know
so
if Google
Google's
comes
gonna
up
know.
with. I would love to see what Google comes up with.
You're a traitor to Siri.
Siri is a fucking bullshit thing.
Siri, S-I-R-I.
You can't be serious.
Okay, Google's first result was Wikipedia, which is a
Oh!
terrible. It's terrible. Their first result is always Wikipedia.
I think
they have some sort of collusion with Wikipedia.
I think that's an indication that Google is trying to make a joke.
Oh, pretty deaf, Charles.
Okay, in their definition, a joke is a display of humor in which words are used within a specific and well-defined narrative structure to make people laugh and is usually not meant to be taken seriously. Okay, but I think
I have a problem with this
I have a problem with
because
that too.
what about the Three Stooges?
Yeah, what about him?
I
I was about to do that, but I prefer the Marx Brothers, truly.
But a joke subverts your expectations, right? It
Oh,
completely changes.
That's why my complaining is never funny, because you guys expect bad shit to happen to me.
No, that's not true, Charles. I mean, do you
I
think
expect you to be the reason why bad shit happens.
Do you
Oh.
think I fed you dinner last night expecting bad shit to happen to you? I expect you to have a discreet orgasm.
Yeah, I thought you just wanted to see me wolf down a hot dog the way I did.
Yeah, that was actually
I
frightful.
like this answer on Quora better. If you ever heard of Quora.
Yeah.
Where was it?
I
A
mean,
joke is funny because of the connection that the joke made with the relevant topic is either very odd, shocking, opposite of what was expected, or so highly exaggerated that it becomes ludicrous, thereby evoking laughter in others.
too many words. How about humor is pain and shock turned inside out?
Sure, I agree with that. That subverts your expectations. You're making light of a situation which is very serious.
Humor
in
is-
many cases.
Humor is subjective. That's why I make sure to whack somebody with a 5-subject notebook.
Right, so why did the chicken cross the road?
Because it came before the egg?
No, to fuck the rooster.
Oh.
Crickets, man. Fucking
That's
crickets.
what I'm talking about. That's why to get to the other side is such a bad punchline.
No,
Well, it depends on how old you are.
My favorite answer to that question came from Jordan Peterson, actually. Why did the chicken cross the road? It was navigate to improve its condition. And if you hear a lot of Jordan Peterson, that shit's funny, but if you just hear it flat like this, it has the same effect as your earlier joke.
Inside humor.
So, there are all these bad, awful jokes, which are just puns, and I love puns. Puns
I
are
love
great.
puns.
I love puns too.
Puns are fantastic. I'm a big fan of dry humor.
Oh, there's.
I also love dark humor.
I love dark humor, but the problem with dry humor is that if you do it well enough, people don't know when you're being straight versus when you're
No,
making
hold
jokes.
up. That means you did it poorly. If
Oh, I
you do
don't
it well
know.
enough, people understand that you're telling a joke.
Yeah.
If you do it poorly, then people don't know that you're actually giving a joke.
Sometimes
okay?
dry humor doesn't go down easily.
That is also true. That is also
That's
true.
a groaner. Very good, Charles.
Yeah, you like that?
No. Sorry, but it was funny in that painful sort
Well,
of
if
way.
you had nuts, I'd kick you in them and give you a couple of acres.
What? Shut up.
You know, one of my favorite jokes is what did the guy say when he walked into the bar?
Ouch.
Exactly.
Oh!
You know, because people aren't thinking about a literal bar; they're thinking about
You know,
a bar.
yeah. Talking about deadpan humor, one of my favorites is from like the Hot Shot movies. Oh God, what was her name? The actress's name, Georgiani or something like that. And she just deadpans those jokes. Like, if I were joking, I would say a horse walks into the bar and the bartender says, "Why the long face?"
So, some of the best movies that I've watched.
I gotta look it up now.
Some of the best movies I've watched: Police Academy, Naked Gun.
Naked Gun.
Okay. Groundhog
Airplane.
Day.
Airplane.
Valeria Galino. There we go.
What was that golf movie with
Caddyshack.
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 Okay.
Hey, everybody.
These,
Oh no.
These are classic comedies. They are fantastic. You can't beat them.
I mean, Rodney Dangerfield was
Another great one is the school one.
Naked
to school.
Gun.
Back to school.
Yeah.
Naked
Hey, everybody,
Gun.
we're gonna get laid.
Naked Gun. Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Well, I mean, Rodney Dangerfield was
The King.
He was a comedic genius, and he also helped a lot of other comedians
Yeah, he
get
was a
started.
romantic.
Chris Farley,
And-
fantastic comedian.
Well, I tell you, I get no respect whatsoever. Why, when I was born, the doctor slapped my mother.
Love it.
But it's a shame that we don't have good comedy anymore. And I say that because what people think is comedy is just the
Yeah.
there is
Was that you fapping?
yes.
Oh.
Yes, it takes about another million to get off at that pace.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Meanwhile, I just got a nub to work with, so.
You know what I need from you, Charles, is to put an egg crate on my seat. You guys don't see how I'm sitting, so I can sit here rocking back and forth. And when you hear me go, woo, 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 you'll know what's going on. Was that
Add some
funny?
At least somebody on this conversation will get some excitement.
Was that funny? Or was this just too crass?
I don't know. All I
There's
know
no
is,
such thing as too crass for my taste.
one of my favorite movies from the last couple decades was Tropic Thunder.
Missed that one.
You never go
Okay.
full retard.
Yes. So Tropic Thunder has,
Oh, I
in
know
my
the one
opinion,
you're talking
I
about.
think
Do you
some
have
of
that one,
the
Charles?
I don't
a
actually.
number of actors that were just not doing well at the time, like Robert Downey Jr. doing Tropic Thunder, and this is right before, I think, or maybe during the same time in which he does Iron Man. He's getting a revival in his career, and he does Tropic Thunder, and Tropic Thunder has him doing blackface humor, and it's
I know.
it is
He gets a
hilarious.
pass. He and Trudeau get a pass. What the fuck?
Oh, you know what movies we forgot?
Which one?
Airplane.
Oh,
I said airplane.
Oh,
you just
you did
weren't
say-
listening.
Airplane.
You
Nobody
ju-
listens to
oh,
you.
yeah, fuck you. How about the first half
How
of
hard?
Rocky Horror?
Rocky Horror. That's a cult classic with great humor in it.
Oh my
Tim
God.
Curry's first movie.
Tim Curry is
Susan
hilarious.
Sarandon,
I love Tim
Oscar
Curry.
winner.
He does good comedy. He
so
also plays a fantastic villain.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, he does.
He's
he was
awesome.
also wasn't he the voice of the villain in that cartoon show? Well, not cartoon show, but like half live action, half CGI superhero.
Probably
Samurai
yes.
Cyber Squad
He
or
did
whatever
shit
it
like
was.
that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Neither does he. Don't worry about it,
yeah,
Gregory.
cartoons and whatnot are for different.
But
time
Tropic
anyways.
Thunder is, I think, one of the last of the movies that could do edgy humor and get away with it, because there's been a constant problem in a lot of movies I've seen recently, is that they're afraid to do humor that is edgy. They're afraid to do humor that
And that's why they're
is
not
just
funny.
really good humor, because it mocks a stereotype, because a stereotype is meant to be mocked.
Yeah, see, stupid people think that.
Stereotypes are real and that they actually should
Well, not
be
only
mocked.
well, not only that. Well, no, but stupid people think that the joking about these stereotypes are promoting the stereotypes, when actually the whole jokes about the stereotypes are just pointing out how stupid some of these things,
Exactly.
some of the ideas are. But even beyond that, even things that people do, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know, you ever notice like some people do this, and what the fuck's wrong with that? Oh,
Sure.
it might offend somebody. Yeah, fuck you.
This is why I like Louder with Crowder. I think he has a lot of very, very, very edgy humor, and some of it falls flat on me, and some of it is incredibly funny.
The thing about stereotypes is that frequently, not always, there's a kernel of truth with a whole lot of distortion.
Mm-hmm.
And when you connect to that kernel, when you connect with the distortion with the objective of dismantling their stereotype, that works as long as there's some common substrate of respect. But you still have to go close enough to the edge of the line, maybe stick a toe over it to make it edgy and funny and hit that strike of shock.
This is why Chappelle is a
I was just
genius.
about to mention Dave
Chappelle
Chappelle.
is an absolute genius. When I saw his some of his specials on Netflix, when I was still watching Netflix, in the last few years,
Yeah.
the one where he did the bit about the alphabet people, that had me rolling. It was hilarious. It was like he's going on and on about the alphabet people, and then suddenly he gets you aware of what he's actually talking about. Yeah, I'm talking about the L's, the G's, the B's, the T's, and the
That
Q's.
was so funny and
it's-
insightful. And insightful. That's the amazing
Yeah.
thing about Chappelle. He is a humorous philosopher, right? That's what makes him so compelling. He's does he always get it right? No, not really. But along the way, he's going to make you think, and never mind that, you'll be laughing along with him, and sometimes at him, and sometimes he'll be laughing at you.
I mean, I like one of the bits that I like the most about him was when he's the blind black KKK member.
Oh my God, that was a great bit. That was a hilarious bit.
And
Absolutely hilarious.
I mean, the funniest part about that is that it just goes to show how far people are willing to go just to push the narrative, right?
Sure.
That's like the underlying thing of the whole bit.
Do you guys follow Fluffy Gabriel Iglesias? I find him so intriguing because he somehow
I've seen him
manages
every now and then.
to make somewhat racial humor and somehow manages to not offend. And I think it has to do with that big heart and that big substrate of respect. But he's the most successful, aside from Chappelle, that I've been able, not that I've been following the scene so closely, but he's very successful at doing that and managing not to get canceled. It's really quite an amazing gymnastic feat.
I'm
What
still
do you
waiting
guys
for.
think of, what do you guys have?
I was gonna say I'm still waiting for us to get banned from YouTube and Facebook and
Oh,
everything.
give it
Oh,
time.
it's gonna happen eventually.
Oh yeah, because
When we
it's going to
become too
drag
big.
down our
Right
monetization
now we're too
so
small
much.
for them to notice.
Yeah.
They don't really care about us. But if we get big, they'll do something.
Yup.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Carlin too.
Yes.
Oh yeah, George Carlin.
Yes.
Carlin,
the king.
there's one bit that always stands out to me is his bit on time and how how subjective it is, and he goes into this great long just rant, which has a lot of great jokes in it. And it also makes me think of epic rap battles. Have you seen any of this stuff?
I've seen those.
So they have an entire series, and one of the series was comedians. And so they had George Carlin versus
Was it Robin Williams?
no. Who's the
Another great comedian, by the way.
black comedian from back in the day?
Oh, Richard
Pryor?
Pryor.
Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
So it starts out Richard Pryor versus
Eddie
George
Murphy.
Carlin.
That's right.
Okay. So George Carlin goes first, then Richard Pryor. Then out of nowhere, Bill Cosby comes out. Then Bill Cosby.
I think I've seen this one.
Bill Cosby gets knocked out by what's the blonde comedian who died a few years back?
Sam Kinison?
Spade?
No, the woman.
Oh.
Woman?
She was like bigger than life. Or
Don't recall.
It doesn't matter. After her comes Robin Williams,
Uh-huh.
and so it's 5 famous dead comedians
Oh God, how
that
painful.
are all going. But Richard Pryor makes a great one-liner. Your jokes are like 2 drinks at the minimum. And he's just commenting on how smart George Carlin's jokes are.
Can I just get really obscure for a moment? I still miss Emo Phillips and Judy Tenuta, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
were a great couple.
I think Emo Phillips still does comedy.
Love you, Emo, but I wouldn't give you head.
He's got his imaginary girlfriend. It's fine.
Robin
And his
Williams
coffee
is a
enemas.
Great comedian.
You ever see that one? It's like, you just think you're better than your girlfriend because you're real?
I wish I'd seen more of Robin Williams stand-up, because I watch every single one of his movies.
Well, I love one thing about Richard Pryor is I like how he basically turned how he lit himself on fire while freebasing into a whole comedy sketch. Because that actually happened.
That's amazing.
We're not talking about Eddie Murphy.
Oh yeah, well,
Oh, my God,
he's
he's awesome.
He's alive though. Nobody cares about him.
You know that.
Yeah, hold on.
Not to
Because-
get your ass beat by the police. That's a public service message right there.
I still say that I found the second Coming to America movie funny, between Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, and who was it? He played Blade. Wesley Snipes.
Oh, I love
Wesley
Snipes.
Wesley Snipes was hilarious in Coming to
Yeah,
America.
it's a real shame about Wesley Snipes and
Bring it over,
the absence
Charles.
in time that he had to stay off the scene.
What happened? I missed it. I must have been very busy.
Well, he had a lot of really bad people under his employ.
Oh, ouch.
He had someone who was just completely wrong for doing his accounting.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, you see that with a lot of
The guy was
stars.
stealing his money,
Oh.
And not
the
recording his
IRS
taxes.
yeah,
and,
not
and
at
you see
all.
this happen to a lot of people.
So
And so
did
he
basically
got
drink
caught.
Impala.
He got caught under that, and so I think what happened is that he had like a house arrest or something like that,
Oh.
and he was just off the scene. He couldn't do anything for a number of years, and one of the first things I saw him back was in what is it? Something Confidential.
Let's see. Well, there was
It was
Demolition Man was before that all happened.
It was a movie that was based on a classic like 70s or 80s Spencer Confidential.
Ah.
Never seen it.
It's a TV series apparently that was back in the day. One of my coworkers who I used to work with at Bed Bath & Beyond was a big fan of it. He said you should watch it, and so I did watch it. It was a good movie, and Wesley Snipes was in it, and I was very, very happy with him being in it.
What's Mr. Snipes doing these days?
Well, like I said, he did the Coming to America movie, which
Well, he's no longer doing Blade. I know that much.
I
They're
know, those are
replacing
awesome
him
movies.
with a new Blade in the.
Oh, please stop regurgitating and recycling. How
Well, I
ugly
think they're just
derivative.
continuing it into the Marvel universe that is the ever expanding.
the ever-expanding black hole of ideas.
Yes.
Oh my God, Disney ruins everything.
Well, once they get their hands on it, they can make, if they can find a way to make money off of it, they will find a way to drive it into the ground, making it as profitable as possible, also making it as bad as possible.
I love the
Hence Star Wars.
I love the one Family Guy episode where Brian and Stewie are traveling to alternate dimensions and they travel to the Disney dimension.
Oh,
and they're
God.
like, oh, there could be nothing wrong here. And then all the characters
Yeah,
look at them.
right.
All the characters look at them and like, Jews.
Guy is great. Old Family Guy is so much better than new Family Guy, but Family Guy still manages to get a good laugh out of me. South Park, oh my God.
Love South Park.
South Park was much better back in the day, as far as how explicit their jokes were.
Oh,
I gotta tell you,
But
they
they've
shocked
become
me
much
regularly.
smarter in their build-ups to their punchlines.
and the video, because you were sending me the link to that video about the SARS.
Oh,
the
it's
response
great.
to SARS.
It's great.
And how it just applies to
So when SARS was a big thing back in the day, South Park made an entire joke on the fact that the South Park community was getting SARS. And the reason they got SARS was that the Indian casino that was in the area poisoned them by giving them a blanket that had contained SARS.
Oh,
and the way
man.
they did that, the way the show shows how they did it, is they had all these naked Chinese guys come into a room.
Oh,
and
God.
the chief, the owner of the casino, said, "Okay, everyone grab a blanket and just hold the Chinese man like this and rub the blanket up and down." It is one of the best jokes.
Stan, I only have a 98% chance of living.
It was great. And the entire episode is spawning from the fact that the casino is going to buy the town so they can lay a superhighway down that goes right through the town to their casino. And so they need $300,000 to buy the town.
Mm-hmm.
And even with all their money built up, they only have like $54,000.
The
Oh,
plans
God.
have been on the zoning commission board for
That
over
is
a
just so
month.
deep. There's so many layers to
The
that.
butt of the joke is they go to the casino, they put it all on black 31, and then they win. And then you see the next scene, they're driving back, and Stan's like, "I can't believe you gambled again on 31 black. We had the money. We had more than enough money." Because it's 35-1, and they put like 50 grand
Right.
on it. "We had so much money." And father is like, his father goes, you just don't know a hot streak. You don't know how to gamble correctly. You don't stop when you're on a hot streak.
Oh, God.
Brilliant.
But the best episode of South Park will always be Scott Tenorman Must Die. Now, if you don't know this episode, it is the episode in which Cartman gets tricked into giving Scott Tenorman his money through a crazy transaction. And he's like, "Okay, I'll give you this 20, you give me your 10. And then I'll give you this 1, and he goes, this is a whole entire elaborate
Oh,
transaction.
yeah.
And it ends up Cartman has less money than when he started the transaction. And so because of that, Cartman devises this plan in which he gets the local farmer to kill Scott's parents, and he bakes it into a chili that he feeds to Scott, that Scott thinks he's actually switched on him, not knowing that he's actually eating the chili. And he's eating Chef's chili. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Chef, this is an exquisite chili. This is just great." And he even gets Scott's favorite band, which is one of those classic boy bands, to show up. And they see him crying as he's acknowledging the fact that he's been eating his parents.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
And it's like, this is just the worst day ever for Scott. And it's at that point you realize how devious and how dangerous of a child Cartman actually is.
Yeah.
And it's great because every episode now, from now on, you're just sitting there. Is Cartman going to show his really dark, evil, manipulative side of himself today? Or is it just going to be regular Cartman? And they just leave it there. There's a couple times, you think, oh my gosh.
What's it called? One thing that used to be better, too, was even, like, the rom-coms, right? Because nowadays the rom-coms are all, like, they have all this touchy-feely shit that are specifically for women. Whereas before, back in the 80s, like I mentioned Mannequin a couple of weeks ago, like I watched that recently.
Classic.
And that was for everybody, right? And
well, we've become much more selective in the audiences in which we want to advertise to.
Mm-hmm.
We've discovered that there is quite an amazing amount of people in one group that we can advertise to. It just so happens that women make up more than men.
It's
and
pretty
if we get
amazing
more
that,
women to watch a movie than we can men, we'll make more money because of it.
It's pretty amazing how like movies that are just like, oh, let's do a thing, and it naturally we're just gonna do a thing and have fun doing it, and it winds up appealing to everybody. But when they're like, oh, we're gonna try and make something that appeals to everybody, that it winds up appealing to like nobody or a select few group of people.
I think it's well shown in Endgame with Marvel, because Marvel
Still never saw it.
Marvel Endgame was absolutely fantastic for the 95% of it. I say 95% of it because there was 5% of it which was just trash. There are
Was that
parts
the part with Captain Marvel?
Yes. Absolutely. Every moment with Captain Marvel was terrible. Absolutely every moment. There was even a moment at the end of the film where Captain Marvel and all the other female characters somehow magically managed to appear on the battlefield at the exact same time in the exact same place.
They came out of the bathroom at the same time.
Yes, yes. I
They all
have
had to freshen up.
Look, the little toilets off to the side that everyone has at the parks and everything, the outhouses and everything. There was at least 20 of them, and they were all going to the bathroom at the same time, and then they appeared. And but the movie was really well done, with the exception of those, and that's clearly the influence of Disney trying to appeal to a very particular audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I forgive him for a few moments, but you can't. It's just terrible.
I remember when Frozen came out, and I'm watching that
movie.
movie.
That's why Endgame, Infinity War, the first portion, was in some points better.
Agreed. I remember watching Frozen and thinking, I don't like this. There's a lot of bad juju here.
Yeah, it was terrible. My best
And
friend
it's like,
thought it was amazing.
Did we mention?
Is your best friend gay?
No,
We were
he's
talking.
married and has a child.
Oh my God.
We were talking about older comedians. Did anybody mention John Candy?
No.
John Candy was great. I loved his movies. I have a few of them. Great Outdoors, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck. Uncle Buck was great when he goes and he scares the guy.
By the way, was this the program, Charles, talking about movies?
Yeah.
Well, comedy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Great.
the program is comedy. We're talking about what we like, subjective comedy, you know. There's a lot of things I find in comedy that we used to do, that they used to do in general, and they've moved away from that. If you watch any one of those comedy late night shows, which was pioneered by Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart had a fantastic show.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fantastic.
then
Which
he turned it all
itself was
shit.
an outgrowth of the Saturday Night Live evening, you know.
This goes back to one of my theories that I've talked about with many people, which is that capitalism is really good. I'm not talking about capitalism as an economic theory. I'm talking about how it functions in some cases, how it affects the world.
So our economy as is.
Sure. Capitalism finds ideas. It encourages really good ideas. There's a lot of great innovation that comes from capitalism. Unfortunately, the innovation stops at the first spot on the chain, because if you look at the product life cycle of anything, it either goes up and then dies, or it re-innovates itself and it goes up again. So capitalism has found ways of finding just the first product cycle and extending the life of the first product cycle to the point where it just eventually goes downhill.
Well, yeah, but how artificial is that?
It was very artificial,
right.
Because they take what they think, and I say what they think very seriously here, because there is no way of knowing why it is one thing is more profitable than another without a very in-depth research into it. But so let's say they took Jon Stewart's show. Jon Stewart's show was profitable. Why was it profitable? Because it was comedy intermixed with news. And so they said, okay, let's turn that into another show. And so they came up with the Colbert Report. And the Colbert Report was really good for a while. And then they were like,
yeah, I saw both of those, by the way.
Why was the Colbert Report good? Well, the Colbert Report was the same thing as the Jon Stewart, but it was a little more serious. And let's do another iteration of that. Then they eventually come up.
Samantha Bee.
Yes, not good. terrible. The humor is awful. Eventually, we get to what is Lily Singh. Have you seen the Lily Singh show? It is.
I like Samantha Bee every now and then.
Every now and then, they have a good joke. Most of the time, they don't. Now we have the new version of The Daily Show, which is Noah Trevor.
Noah Trevor.
Noah Trevor.
Noah, you're not funny, Trevor.
Funny.
But well, I mean, it all harkens back to the idea I was saying before, like that if you want people, even in humor, you just be yourself, and you don't try to be a certain way to entertain people. It's that whole humor that people like is not humor that is trying to be a certain way for a certain ideology.
I think you're asking a lot out of people, because I think most people,
fuck those
most people are not funny, and at least 1/3 of people cannot detect humor.
Right, like
they're humorless.
Right, like see, I'm not funny. I laugh at just about anything, and I'll always be obscure, and I'm happy with that.
People are trying to engineer humor,
right?
Which is impossible. You cannot engineer humor. Humor is very spontaneous, and people who work at being funny
aren't.
No, that's not true.
Well,
people who work at being funny have to spend even more effort than moments that are actually just
Wait. That's a distinction between being funny, which is a spontaneous thing, and crafting a joke, which undergoes a lot of iterations.
But that's what I'm saying, is that a lot of companies have put money into saying, okay, here's the idea, this is what we're going to do, just make it funny, and it'll make us money.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like, I'm not a funny person. I'm perfectly fine with being in obscurity. But for someone to try to take me and all of a sudden make me funny or promote me as being funny, it's fucking stupid.
Well, you could take moments of what you say and put them in together with a string of syllables, and you would definitely be
funny. Is that a good string of syllables for you?
Not yet, but when I take the first half of this episode and I just cut out all the times that I'm speaking or Red's speaking, and we cut the one word that you said and mix it to the end of there. We take one of the words that you said in the back, and we put it in the front. Eventually, we will come up with a conversation of Charles being funny without actually being funny.
Yeah. All right, so final thought, Red.
Final thought? I want to try that experiment and call it the Charles parody.
What do you got, Greg?
My final thought is that good comedy does not have barriers of entry. There is no reason why you can't say anything in particular, as bad or as good of a one-liner as it may be. It could be the most racist or the least racist joke of any kind. If it's funny because it's funny.
Right, minus animals and children.
Well,
if it's funny, almost anything goes.
No. Everything has humor in it.
My final thought
take away
is
from my humor.
My final thought is, and let's see if I can still do this. Well, I can't.
Damn!
Thank you.
That reminds me when I was married.
Oh!
And with that said, that is it for our final episode. Or that is it for this episode.
Final episode. There's a real joke.
Oh my God! Does he want to lie down and die after this one?
Yeah, I know, right? Make sure to tune in to our next episode, which is titled "Sins of the Farter."
Oh, how appropriate!
Or don't check it out.
Remember,
or I don't give a fuck either way.
Remember to
fuck
find
either
us
way.
on Locals, BitChute, Rumble, Minds, and to check out our alt tech extras. And with that said, I'm Greg.
And I am Charles, and that is Red. Say goodbye, Red.
Goodbye, darlings.
Remember to never question.
Never ask for proof.
And always believe what you're told by the news and politicians.
No matter what. Now go back to sleep, fuckers. Good night, fellow human. You'll wake up tomorrow to cause more destruction and bring much more sorrow. You'll go out and smile and pretend you are good. But once you get crossed, you'll don a black hood. You'll maim and you'll rend all while you pretend that you are some kind of hero. You can't face the truth and you'll stay aloof to the fact that you're a zero. You'll sit and stay glued to a spoon-feeding tube so that you can believe you're the best. You'll obey and be bribed by a campaigner's lies. All throughout the COVID Murder Fest. I hate you all.